All right, and we're ready. Okay, so Alhamdulillah, we're gonna continue, man. Move straight on with what we came to bring this morning. We're continuing on the topic, uh, the jinn, Iblis, Shaitan, and the Taghut. We just no, pardon me. That's our Sunday. We have Satan, hypocrites, history, and the Word of God. That's what we're doing here. They all are connected. They all go together. I just separate and put a different focus on each one. But for time's sake, and we've done enough of the preliminary. Let's start off where we ended up last week. Where we ended last week, we talked about the symbol in the Sankofa bird, the Sankofa bird, and we're gonna pick up right from there so we can get to some of the other content. So, all right. So the concept of the Sankofa bird is derived from King Andinkira Akan of the Akan people of Ghana. And Sankofa breaks down to san, to return, ko, to go, fa, to look, to seek, or to take. Visually and symbolically, Sankofa is expressing and is expressed as a mythic bird that flies forward while looking backward with an egg in its mouth. That's the symbolism. That's what it represents. So it literally means to go back to fetch it. It teaches us that we should reach back, gather the best of what our past has to teach us so that we can achieve our full potential as we move forward. Whatever we have lost, forgotten, foregone, or been stripped of can be reclaimed, revived, preserved, and perpetuated. And abbreviated for us as Muslims, when Allah says, "This day have I perfected for you your way of life and have preferred for you Al Islam as your way of life," basically it answers all that was captured by the great minds and hearts and spirits that gave this symbol and the mythology of Sankofa. That is incorporated in Al Islam because that's precisely what we're doing. Fitratullahi lati fatra nasa alayha la tabdila li khalqillah. Some very rich teaching about the form that the Imam just gave us. The idea is to retrieve and to achieve and to acquire and to express our full potential as human beings. Alama adam al-asma'a kullaha. That is the science that Allah has put into our very nature. So it's natural for us to be scientists if we develop ourselves. All this is incorporated. You can read all of this out of the Sankofa, and I'm saying that we have it in Al-Islam. So the bottom line is ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ قَيِّمًا. That is the religion, quote unquote, the way of life, right and straight. وَلَكِنَ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Most human beings don't know that. And so while rich histories as the African people can come to those conclusions and memorialize it and mythologize it and fableize it so that it can benefit the people who are taught what its message actually is and hold on to its meaning, they will be moved forward by embracing and acting upon it. For us, Al-Islam answers the same thing. But expressed in words in the Quran explicitly, and then the ritual practices are designed to accomplish that very thing. So you can say Sankofa, what its intent is embedded in Al-Islam also. James Baldwin, we quote, says they are in effect still trapped. Speaking of people, and he was talking about quote unquote rednecks and white, the colored man, etc., as the Imam explained. They are in effect still trapped in a history which they do not understand. And until they understand it, they cannot be released from it. This is true for everybody. This is true for everybody. Whoever does not understand their history, they are actually imprisoned by their history. And you have to understand how to interpret, reinterpret, comprehend the impact of your history and what the history preserved for you, and what the history, how the history is still expressed in you, and really we need to understand all history, human history, not just quote unquote so-called Black history or African history or ancient Egyptian history. We need to understand the totality of human history from the creator who created all human beings and who has a plan embedded in the nature of all things that he has created, but has given us free will to decide whether you're going to conform and promote the plan or defy and be destroyed by the plan. MashaAllah. Lauren Greenfield, we quoted, authentic culture can provide us a way to think critically about what's around us. Speaking of her work, she says, my work is about having a way to deconstruct the culture around us so we can kind of see the matrix that we're in and hopefully have a little agency over it. So that is what you have to do in order to have a sense of, well, to be free, I'll just put it that way, in order to be free and not just be manipulated by the culture that you have been, quote unquote, acculturated in and through and by. I'm going to be speaking quite a bit about movies in just a moment, but some of those that won't be pictured, like the current movie Free Guy, that message is in there. The idea of having some agency over the world around you, that you don't know where it came from, you don't know where you came from, you don't know how you fit into it, you don't understand it, and so therefore you have no agency over it. But when you become the free guy, then that frees you from it. And that's the same message, of course, of the Matrix, the idea of being free of the Matrix. But you see that movie in The Truman Show, in Groundhog Day, in Dark City. What else? There's a bunch of movies. I got a new phone. I got the phone put in here, so gonna have to sweat that. I forgot to cut it off. Let's let it finish ringing. Technology will drive you crazy if you let it. Hold on for a minute. I'm not going to let that happen again. Y'all be all right. Think about what we said. All right. We're back. All right. So the point is getting to a position where you have some control over the world that you're in. Let's see here. All right. Just want to be clear on that. All right. In his book, Waking Up, Overcoming the Obstacles to Human Potential, Charles T. Hart explains the nature and the function of culture. This is very history and culture in so many ways synonymous. All right. History is a product of culture, and culture is also a product of history. So understanding both of them are very, very important. And I'm really driving towards, and I want you to keep this in your mind so that you can have this point and be predisposed to it as we continue to go through it. The bottom line is that we live in a culture that's been created for us. We live in a history that's being manufactured for us. And to that extent, then we become like the man in Groundhog Day, like the Truman Show, like the Dark City, like the Matrix. It's not a fantasy; it's a reality. It's a reality. You're going to see more, inshallah, as we go on. And you have to wake up. You have to wake up. even like the invasion of the body snatchers, that comes back to mind. Now the idea is that the pods get you. Now we got podcast. Hello, podcast. And now the pod, when you go to sleep, that's when you get taken over. And even the movie Poltergeist, they were also giving you that symbolism when the little girl was standing in front of the television with all the snow, which is the combination of signal and noise, the snow on the old TVs. Okay, this is that snow is signal and noise mixed together. And if you don't know how to separate the signal from the noise, you don't get the picture. But if you don't get the picture, then the poltergeist, they're going to do whatever they're going to do to you. So yeah, you should also look into that zeitgeist, look into that piece. So whatever, it's a lot. Let's just keep going. So waking up, overcoming the obstacles to human potential. Charles T. Tart explains the nature and function of culture. He states, from a culture's point of view, it is far better if your everyday mind, the habitual automatized way you think and feel, is shaped to reflect the culture's consensus, beliefs, and values. Why are you stumbling all over your words? Because it's just so much in my head and I'm rushing. Let me calm down. Listen, one of the things, signal and noise, right? I just talked about signal and noise, poltergeist, TV thing. QR code, bring that to your mind. The point is, you can look at something, it looks like it doesn't have any order. It does have order, but if you don't understand which part of it is significant and which part of it is insignificant, see the word sign in that, significant and insignificant sign is in there. You have to be able to see the sign. When you see the sign and read it, then now you've abstracted the information from what is otherwise confused. Confused means two things are stuck together. They need to be separated. Confused. So you have to separate the signal from the noise. And when you get the signal, you say, oh, that's what it's saying. Now, others looking at it, oh, there's the Magic Eye book. Look that up. So the idea is being able to separate signal from noise. I want to focus on real quick on the idea of it's for a cult from a culture's point of view. And I want you to see the culture as an invisible. Let's make it an alien, since we're talking in these kinds of terms. Understand the culture as an alien that dominates everybody inside of it, right? And so it has a particular interest, and one of its main interests is that you don't think. Just like the Matrix, they don't want you to wake up, don't want you to be disconnected, and so many of the other things, the Truman Show, all that, the same scenario. But that's the reality of our situation in every culture, because there's a positive and a negative side to that. So the culture, in order for it to quote unquote self-perpetuate, because it has a life of its own, in order for it to self-perpetuate, it needs everybody in it to be what it wants it to be, and to be so automatically, without question, without resistance, to be automatized. Now, mark this and hold on to it. Signal, stimulus. Signal, stimulus. Signal, you see sign in that? Signal. And it has to do with symbolism. A lot of it has to, well, all of it has to do with symbolism, really, if you understand. Signs are things that carry information, right? Signal stimulus is like Pavlov's dog. Pavlov's dog, you know that story. Ring the bell, give him food. Ring the bell, give him food. Salivation, boom, boom, boom. Ring the bell, no food. Salivation still happens, right? Pavlov's dog. So why? Because the stimulus is the bell, signal stimulus. And so the body is going to do automatically what it has been used to doing when what normally follows the bell, bell, food, food, I need salivation, okay. Bell, no food, I still salivate. So just like with the experimenter, the culture is the same way, right? It wants you to behave in a certain way, no matter what. And a culture that does that, it is successful. Now, if we could understand the positive side of that, when Allah tells us, "Wal takum minkum ummah," Well, it said build a culture. Okay, so let's imagine this. Then let's read this, but read it with the understanding of ummah, right? From an ummah's point of view, it is far better for your everyday mind that the habitual automatized way that you think and feel is shaped and reflects the ummah's consensus of beliefs and values. What's wrong with that? If you are really alive to al-Islam in that way, you're not asleep. But here's the real key. You don't have to spend a lot of time with it. Sami'na wa ata'na. Sami'na wa ata'na. We hear and we obey. That's an automated response. We hear and we obey. That's the believer, right? So if the believer is in a world that's been instantiated by the values of al-Islam, it says, وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ, calling to all that is khair, what is all that is excellent. تَعْمَرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. This is the everybody's mind, the everyday mind of everybody in that ummah, in that culture. تَعْمَرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. They command what is good. وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. They all this is done automatically. And prohibit what is bad. Now, if that's the automatized mind where they automatically hear and obey, right? They automatically enjoying what is right, forbid what is wrong. They act in accordance with what has been shown to be excellent, meaning lines up with Allah's will in the history of humanity, since the history of humanity. Well, nothing wrong with that. But if you come into a culture that is devilish, that's the problem. That's where we are right now, because this culture has given the everyday mind the habitual automatized way of thinking and feeling, and a set of beliefs and values that are contrary to Allah's will for humanity. That's the problem. So I mentioned sign stimulus. Look it up and remember it with these words: FAP and MAP. FAP and MAP. I want to quote unquote, you know how we say sometimes. Shout out to Dr. Elamin, Hamid Elamin. He tied me into that point. When you start looking at gaslighting individuals, that sign stimulus is all a part of that. FAP is fixed action pattern, meaning there's a pattern. Pavlov's dog. There's a pattern. Now, the person who has got you under the influence of the sign stimulus, then they have a fixed action pattern that they want you. That's what culture gives you is a fixed action pattern. Once you are acculturated by it, then you just act the way that the culture wants you to act. If you're not conscious of it, if you have no sense of agency on it, if you're not the free guy, if you're not Neo, you get what I'm saying? If you're not that, then all you're doing, you're just going through life somnambulistically, doing what the culture wants you to do, and it's good. You can still have a life. Well, it depends on which part of the culture that you're in, because you might be the mud seal, but I'm going too far right now. All right, the point is that fixed action pattern and then modal action pattern, MAP, modal action pattern. So that means that, okay, once the bell rings, you connected with me on that. Once the bell rings, it sets up the behavior, and all the behavior flows from there, all of it, until the fixed action pattern, until the modal action pattern is complete. Then that's what's going to happen. And then you ring the bell again, and then it starts all over. And then you ring the bell again, and it starts all over. Start thinking about the boxing ring, right? Boxing ring. It starts all over. You got a square, but they call it a ring. And the game is called boxing. Not going to do it anymore. Okay, continue this. So then you will automatically experience the right perceptions and interpretations, and so it will be natural to act in the culturally appropriate way. Fixed action pattern, modal action pattern, even when there are no agents of social coercion around. I would love to bring in right now that Carter G. Woodson quote. Just look it up. I'm not the memorizer. But that Carter G. Woodson in Miseducation of the Negro says, once you control a man's mind, you don't have to worry about his behavior, because he's automatically going to do what you expect him to do. and the strong, the emphatic point where it says even if you tell him to go to the back, he'll go to the back without him even being told. And when he gets back there and there's no door for him, he'll demand one. So the idea is that without there being any agent of social coercion, nobody even has to be around. You got some Bilalians where we talk to each other and we start talking, the white man. It's like, what you whispering for? The Jews. What you whispering for? But see, there's a sign in that, a symbol in that. It says, if you want to know who has the power, then see whose name is whispered. See whose name is whispered. If their name is whispered, they're the ones that have the power with those in that communication. All right, let's finish up. When you automatically think, behave, and feel normally, when the internal workings of your mind automatically echo most of the values and beliefs of your culture, then you have that as a mindset, then you have achieved cultural consensus trance. And we should say that it's the masters of the culture and the culture of itself, and the culture itself, they have achieved their end, which was to put its members, or those under its influence, or those inside of its jurisdiction, they have put them into cultural consensus trance. And understand this, nobody lives outside of a culture. But if you don't live inside of your own culture, then you by default are living in someone else's culture. Imam Muhammad said in the last week broadcast that we played, he said, as the emphatic point, he said, never again trust your senses in this world. And the analogy that we use now in that respect is treat your senses like a child in a dangerous city. All right? Treat your senses like a child, your child, in a dangerous city. You have to protect your child from the threats of harm to it, and then the manipulation and destruction of it and the abuse of it. You have to be in control of your own senses, and don't trust this world with your senses. Question everything. You have to. All right, so now we're getting into those people who have that knowledge and use that knowledge and have been using that knowledge, and we haven't gotten close to where we want to get in the context of that. We're closer than when we started, but we still have ways to go. Moving on. So the illustration on this, to go past last week, we spent time. You have the Ankh. The Ankh is the key of life. The key of life, that actually is a man. That actually is a head, or the mind. So the way you use the key is you put your hand in their head and you turn them left, right, center, etc. That is the key of life, the key to control the lives of others. And if you have self-control, then you have the key of life. But these folks, at least, well, let's go ahead and say, the emphasis for us is to understand how others are using the keys against us. I'm not going to elaborate much more on that, but the biggest piece of this that for this connection is the fact that this is Isis. She has two right hands. She don't have two left hands, or a left and a right hand. That hand right there, which should be a left hand, it's actually a right hand, right? The left is unconscious, but the right is conscious. But what is it saying? It is saying that we have control of the unconscious. Now, again, the positive side, when you gain more control of your own unconscious makeup, then the more powerful you are. But also, like the key, the more someone else gains conscious control of your unconscious, well, there you go. They have their power over you. They're in your head. All right. And that's the nature of this society right there. Right. And you could talk about the thigh being the strongest part of the body and having to do with faith and all of that. So controlling your faith, controlling your belief, controlling your ideas about God, who is God, who's not God. That's also one of the prime ways of controlling it. And this right here is a full moon on the top with horns. And of course, you have that bird. Bird almost look like a turkey. But without going into that, under this is like a half crescent moon there. But not so focused on that. What I'm focused on is the idea that this is a sign of this is our power. This is why we have power. This is how we control wherever and whoever we are among who doesn't have this knowledge. Imam Muhammad, 1982, and that address that you just heard was a 1982 address. The Imam gave up just so much all the time. Moving on. The highest knowledge of man in society is the science of his spirituality. See, that's that right left hand on the thigh is also speaking that same message. The highest knowledge of man in society is the science of his spirituality. And believe me, you're not ruled by guns. You're not subdued because of great physical knowledge. You're subdued because there are people in this world who know more about your spirituality than you do. And they're able to use the tools of science that they have regarding your spirituality to manipulate you and keep you under adverse spirits. This whole piece is tied to the Imam's statement in As the Light Shines in the East, the pendulum swing, the cultural swing, and the aberrant behavior at the lower angle of the pendulum's swoop. That because they're using that science to manipulate. And again, I'll go back particularly to that movie, Dark City. It really talks about. Well, it does a great job of doing that, but I'm not going to elaborate. If you're interested, you should go see it, get it, understand it, and know that that's the world that you're living in right now. All right, so here's a person. What does it say? His name is Milken. Arnon, I believe it's Arnon Milken. Arnon Milken. A 2000 profile by Los Angeles Magazine collected many of the reports from media and people in Hollywood that Milken dealt arms for the Israeli government. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, even until the Gulf War in 1991, Milken was Israel's foremost weapons procurer, brokering deals for such prized super weapons as the Hawk missile and the famous Scud foil of the Gulf War, the Patriot. Everything from nuclear triggers to rocket fuel to guidance systems, according to NBC News. Milken clarified to the magazine that he was more of an agent for Israel than an out-and-out dealer, helping to secure weapons only for his home country. He's just saying, this is what I do for my country. What's the deal? Okay. Milken's adventures in international intrigue also included helping the apartheid regime in South Africa buy newspapers. He said he withdrew from the arrangement once he better understood the nature of apartheid. I wonder if it's before or after he made money. Either way. He said he withdrew from the arrangement once he better understood the nature of apartheid and associations with an individual who was indicted by the U.S. government on charges of smuggling timers with a nuclear capability to Israel. Okay, one was doing what he was doing, but he got indicted. Milken was never charged. Now, why is this guy important, Fahim? Let's see. He is more than that. He's a movie producer. He's a movie producer. Some of his movies, it's not all of them. I have some others to mention. Some of his movies, Once Upon a Time in America, Tin Cup, Pretty Woman, Fight Club, The Revenant. You remember that bear and Leonardo DiCaprio. That's an unforgettable scene. The Big Short, JFK, that Oliver Stone movie, right? JFK. So he's the man behind the man with the camera. this guy Arnon, right? And 12 Years a Slave, right? These are all his productions. Natural Born Killer, L.A. Confidential, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Free Willy, uh, Heat, right? These are not these are not B movies. These are mainstream, mainline movies, and he is the the mind behind these productions. Now, let's get to how the bearing on this. Zardoz. This is another movie to need to be very, very familiar with. If you want to understand how Shaitan is operating, how the culture is being used, and how people are being manipulated by it, really, it's like, again, hey, say what you will, but this whole 50 Cent regime, they got stuff going on with 50 Cent in the same way that the guy, whoever that gave you Jimmy J.J. Walker and all the other things. We're moving on up, da, 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 da. Archie Bunker, whoever that guy is. So now they're doing that for quote unquote Bilalians. I'm not going to get into it now. We will definitely get into it later, because they are using this science that I'm talking about to keep us on this merry-go-round. If you are not free from it, are we not entertained? Yeah, you are being entertained. You're being held back. Here's the movie is Zardoz, and Zardoz is a combination, and you'll find it inside the theme of the movie or the plot of the movie itself. Sean Connery's character, who's the so-called star, I'm trying not to elaborate on it, Zardoz. So a book was left out for him by this guy. His name is Arthur Frayne, right? In the movie, his name is Arthur Frayne. And so they left the book, Wizard of Oz, but all that this person could see on the publication was, Zardoz. So Zard is the end of wizard, huh? And then Oz. So, but it's Zardoz. So all I want to point to right now, this head right here is letting you know that the knowledge that's being operated from is the same knowledge from ancient Egypt. That right there, that imagery right there, he is this, right? It's the mixing of, even like, well, Quran said you're going to find the wisdom where the two rivers meets, where the two streams meet. That's a very, very big deal, and it transcends so much. It's the height of it, but it also it's fractal. It applies on every level. If you can find and reconcile the known and the unknown, the signal and the noise, if you can understand the the light and the dark, the all of that, all of the conscious and the unconscious, when you can understand how whatever it is that you're talking about is how it dwells between and within, or is expressed by those two parts. And I would say that that's also a part of the whole Zardoz scenario, because you have two words, but you blend them together, make one word. So where the two words meet, that's also where the hint is. But the point is that this person's name is Arthur Frayne, and if you went back and look at the movie, inshallah, with Allah's help and guidance, inshallah, you'll be able to see that all it is just telling the story of the reality of this culture, in the way that it operates fundamentally. And this is also, look, it's like cave drawings, right? It's like cave drawings. You look at a cave drawing, and there's a story that's being told by the cave drawing, but somebody has to know how to read the story on the cave drawings, and the ones who read it teach it to the ones who don't know, who are responsible to live in the culture, perpetuate, promote, and protect the culture. They get taught what the cave drawings are about, right? And they imbibe those values and they go forward with that. Okay, well, listen, movies are the same thing for this world, but it's more for the elite It's quote unquote entertainment. Understand what this is. Taining. What is taining? You have contain, retain, entertain, obtain. Okay, so you got tain means to hold, right? And actually, taining is the silver backing that's put on glass, right? It's put on glass in order to make a mirror. In order to make a mirror, they call the movies where movies are played, and movies themselves are called the silver screen. The silver screen. So the point is, so taining is what's on is what's on the back of the glass in order to create a mirror. And so when you look in a mirror, what do you see? You see a reflection, right? Unless you're Dracula, you're a vampire. It's another story. The idea is that when you look, you're seeing yourself, right? When you look, you're seeing yourself. Okay, well, those people who understand the silver screen, understand the role of quote unquote entertainment and movie making, who understand that, they know that the subject of the movie is the one that's in the audience. The subject of the movie is the one that's in the audience. And that it's their ability to shape the person's self-image by what they put on the screen. And so that you go in one way, and the exposure to the entertainment, it could be television, movies, or what have you. And then you get reshaped. So you leave the movie in a different shape than you were when you went into the movie, if you are sleeping in that situation, if you're not conscious, if you're not critiquing, say, oh man, well, it ain't gonna be entertaining to critique. Well, it depends. Some things can be entertaining, but I mean, you got to decide. Don't trust your senses to this world. So yeah, I think you should critique all the time, and then you can say, well, yeah, it was entertaining on this side, but if you don't want to live like that, then you got to stop listening to people like me, because you can't give nothing in this world a pass, man. All right, so the Latin word, his name was Arthur Frayne, right? And again, I think that's a play on the word refrain, right? The Latin word refrenere is formed by the prefix re, which means back, and plus the word frenere, which is to hold a horse back with a bridle. To hold a horse back with a bridle. It's the part of a song or a poem that repeats. Come on. What do they call that part of the song that repeats? The hook. Hello? The hook. That's the hook right there. And they put that inside of the song because that's what happens. Poetry is very, very deep, very, very, it's deep and old, not just deep from a psychological point of view, but it's ancient because we were oral before we were literate. And so our earlier speech was more, don't think poetic when you say, whatever. I know what the cage birds sing about it. I'm not thinking in those terms, but we would speak in rhyming. We would speak in rhyming terms. Early man, we would speak in rhyming terms because it was easier to remember. So if you study language, study linguistics and early linguistics, those earliest writings, many of them were in a poetic structure, not necessarily because it was just being all philosophical, just because it is memorable. And that's what had to happen. It had to be remembered. Okay, so Arthur Frayne, he's saying that we understand the wisdom. We understand the knowledge of how to keep these people on this cycle, keep these people going around in circles, bring these people into consensus trance. That's the wisdom that's operating in this world right now that we're under. If you don't think so, all you got to do is just look. Washington, D.C., right here, the Washington Monument is nothing but the obelisk from Egypt. This is on the top of that pyramid, and the supervision and the eyesight in this world that you see on the back of the dollar bill, and this eagle right here, because eagle is also symbol of vision. That's the big deal of the eagle. You got the the eye of the eagle. But I have to tell you, said I don't know, whatever. There's a biblical saying that tells you that this is where you should be looking for the end, also. But that's not my subject right now. So this eagle symbol is also this Tutankhamun type pharaoh, right? Same thing. The olive branch, the olive branches are the olive branches is the pardon me is the hook. The olive branches are the hook. The flail, it's kind of like the cat o' nine tails that's in the pharaoh's hand. Those are the arrows. If I can't get you psychologically, if I can't get you spiritually, then we're gonna have to do it physically, all right? The hook, when I say I'm gonna get you by hook or crook, right? The hook is the crook, right? But it's the way that you manipulate the sheep, the way that you control the animal, the way that you bridle the animal. You use that psychology, you use that hook, and also. But then again, if that doesn't work, then you dominate them physically. All right. All right. So fundamentally, what we've said is to understand that there are those who understand the nature of history, the nature of humanity, the nature of culture, the nature of society, the nature of psychology, and they use that knowledge to create these fixed action patterns, to use that sign stimulus, to use those modal action patterns to entertain, restrain, refrain, contain the masses of people who have no sense of agency over the culture. And so they can turn the clock back with what they project through the media that they control. And so you're living in 2021, but they've given you a mind literally from 1821, if that's what they want to do. And if you cannot distinguish reality from what they manufacture, then you are you just controlled. You're done. Now, just as we said that there's the plus side and the minus side for everything. Meaning, okay, when we just talked about where the two rivers meet, right? Here's another fractal for that in principle. History. When we say the words make history, made history, say he made history, she made history, we're going to make history. There's two sides to that. One is the idea of doing something that has never been done before. All right. That's what the idiom make history means. Somebody just did something that's never been done before. That's one side of it. The other side of it is bring something into existence that didn't exist before. Mean manufacture. It means manufacture something. Manufacture something that will be true in the future. We talking about making history. Stay with me. It's going to be true in the future. Do what you have to do now in order to make something true in the future, so that when you get to that future, which will now be history, it will be the history that you made. Let me see if we can get some help from Imam Muhammad on this. Isma'il Raji Faruqi has this statement in TAWHID, its implications for thought and for life. He says, the Muslim knows himself. This is a scholar, no scrub, okay, for the fullest extent. He said, the Muslim knows himself, not the absolute as responsible for history. That is, people say, well, we're going to let God handle it. He's going to do this. He's going to do it. No, the Muslim know he has a responsibility. She has a responsibility for history. A Muslim is confident that what God disposes history to be in the end, That is what it will be. When we talk about the qadr, even, the qadr is not God forcing something to be what it is. He simply knows what it's going to be. He knows the choices we're going to make, but they will be our choices. And Allah is never unjust to any of his creature. And subhanallah, Allah is beyond indictment. And if you don't understand it now, there's a day about which there is no doubt that it's coming and say, oh, you thought it was this and it was that. You thought it was that and it was this. And you thought because of this, it was that. No, be guided now so you'll have the answers and be in the best condition then. Well, this is what the likes of Dr. Isma'il, Raji, Faruqi is telling us. He said, the Muslim is confident that what God disposes history to be in the end is the direct consequence of his own conduct in history. You have to act in a certain way. His own conduct in history on the personal, individual level, as well as on the communal or societal level. See, we all have to be thinking about what role do we have to play in history. Don't turn around and look back when we use this word now, history, the role that we play in history, turn around and look back. No. We're talking about history that you're going to make based on the time ahead of you and the time that is with you now. You have a responsibility on the individual, on the personal level, and we have a responsibility on the communal and societal level to make history be what we want it to be. And better said, what Allah wants it to be. وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ عُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ. Imam Muhammad from the Elijahville Jummah, he said, this is the future we are building. And Allah says, look to the future. Don't value this present life over the future, but look to the future. Let your aim, your object be toward the future. That's the orientation in the Muslim life. That is, the Muslim lives with hope for accomplishing a goal that is in front of him. We are always supposed to be going towards something as a goal, as an object to achieve in front of us. That's our sensitivity. That should be our concern. That's the way we live. We don't just live in the present. They have 3 tenses, don't they? In fact, they have 4. They have past tense, present tense, future tense, and this one you don't know about, controlled tense. Well, we want to move in every tense. We want present, we want past, future, and controlled tense. So when you design a life for yourself with an object in mind, and you marshal everything to complement that and to support that, man, you are on your own time then. You're not in the past, you're not in the present. When you perceive that way, you are really in the future, but you have to step ahead of the ordinary concept of future time. You have stepped into controlled time. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. So much, I'm going to restrain myself. Here's a boiling down of this now. Sit back, take a breath, listen. Today we live in the future of our past. Those of you can take screenshots, you should take a screenshot of this because you likely want to look at it in the future. Freeze it when you go back and look at it online. Get on this, okay? And mashallah, it is my making. Just so you know where it comes from. Okay, me, mashallah. Says, today we live in the future of our past. Yesterday, today was tomorrow. And tomorrow, today will be yesterday. What we do today will affect us tomorrow, just as what we did yesterday has affected us today. Today, we live in the past of our future. So before our future comes to past, we must plan what we want our history to be. And we can do that if we get into controlled tense. So you just got to take that, read it, think about it. I'm going to go ahead and make a note to myself to spend more time with that concept. Because the bottom line is you have to make history. History can be made. See, that's another side of that very short, powerful surah. Wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat. It's like, it's all about time. It's about understanding time. And what we think about time, we really don't understand time. We don't understand time. You know, there are a lot of teaching that, but we're going to get to that when we come back, inshallah. But the point is that time is malleable. Let's put it like that. You hear talk about the fabric of time, the space-time fabric and all that. It's like time is very malleable. And it's understanding how to, it's understanding about understanding time and how to act in it. Right? I'm going to go ahead and conclude in part of this. And that is that must be all I need to say on that, because whatever I had in mind, it just switched up on me. MashaAllah, alhamdulillah. Okay, so that's going to be it for today. And inshallah, we look forward to the Jumu'ah coming. Our sympathies to Amina Latifa Shaheed and family. Her mother passed away from this life a couple of days ago. We say inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. May Allah forgive her shortcomings and grant her entry into the paradise, inshallah. And our prayers are with everyone who is, and everyone is in so many ways dealing with something. That's the nature of life. And as we continue our Friday subject, we'll get more into that because it's all a part of the game of life. Everybody have a wonderful day. Allah's peace be on you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.